If you can just remember this and then play the game, then you're going to be able to win. And that's game state awareness. Welcome to Universal Man. My name is Mark Weppett, and I'm here to help you play a bigger game with your life and become a man that you admire. And today I'm back with another episode of the Enter the Omnigame series, where we teach you to look at life as if it were a game that can be mastered and won. And in this episode in particular, I'm going to be talking about how you can really start seeing every minute of every day as part of this whole game-like structure. Like, if we just look at life as a whole as a game, that's just too big, too unwieldy to really do anything with. And so we need to know how to break it down. Like, every major game is broken down into sets or into innings or into rounds or whatever. And so we got to learn how to do the same sort of thing here and learn how to win those little sections of the game. And so that's exactly what I'm going to be covering today. And if you can learn how to do this, it really kind of starts making life feel like this video game that you can constantly be leveling up in. And so I'm pumped to share this with you. I hope you get a lot out of it. Now, before we get into the meat of this video, I just got to take a second to say that, like, in order to play the game of life, you must actually be playing, meaning you can't feel like you're just surviving and grasping at trying to just be okay. And the big difference here is that if you're coming from a place of fear, well, then you're not going to be playing, you're going to be surviving. And so one of the biggest things that we can do to help fix that is to make sure that you're surrounded and supported. Make sure that you've got a team on your side that will help you make this transition from the person that you are to the person that you really want to be. And to help with this, I've created the Vanguard, the best online masculine development community that I know of, and I think you should check it out today. Link in the description. All right, so let's start getting into this. The big thing that we're going to look at here is our patterns of behavior and changing them and the game of changing them. In order to do this, we got to understand what a pattern really is, or a habit really is, or a behavioral loop really is. What it is, I think, it's a circuit. And it's a special kind of circuit that when we give energy to it, we engage in resonance. What I've talked about previously, where if you activate this certain kind of circuit, well, then you engage in resonance, and that gives you a state of sort of autopilot, a state of flow, a state of, unconscious sort of operation. So that's what we're dealing with, is we fall into these sort of autopilot flow states, and a lot of times they don't work for us. Now, this circuit is actually what I would define as a moral circuit, meaning that it operates upon a perception of good versus bad. So good would be the positive sort of electrode, and the bad would be the negative electrode. And what this means is that every single circuit or pattern of behavior that you fall into, it's got its own little worldview where it says, hey, this stuff over here is good and this stuff over here is bad. And the problem that most people run into is that these mappings of their patterns, of the good and bad of the different circuits that they're operating on, doesn't actually match their authentic beliefs. So, for example, say you've got someone who's a video game addict. All right. If we were going to analyze the circuit of that person's behavior, well, we just got to map it out. What does that person define as good, and what do they define as bad while they're operating? Okay, well, the video game addict, the thing that he thinks is most good is leveling up in his video game, exploring these, virtual worlds, maybe ranking up his character or whatever. Okay, that's his good. His bad is kind of anything that takes him away from that, like real life, right? Like maybe like going to work or spending time with family or friends or anything that would disrupt his main objective of gaming, that would be viewed as bad. This is for the addict, the person who's taken video games and make them dysfunctional. If we're dealing with a porn addict, similar sort of thing, but it's, sexual in nature. Anything that's going to turn them on more or, get them off harder or whatever, that's their good. And then the things that would get in the way of that, ugly women, people that they're unattracted to, or just things, again, that would take them away from that pursuit of pleasure, that would be bad. And so if those circuits get activated, well, then that's what they're emotionally feeling. And that's the problem, is that you end up feeling things that aren't actually a representation of what you really believe. Because most of these people, if you're going to ask them, sit them down when they're, rational and not in their loop, not resonating with that old circuit, and ask them what they really thought was important and good, they'd likely give you very different answers than the ones we just defined. However, once they're in that circuit, that's what they're living off of. That's what they're operating on. And this is a big problem. So what we need to do is we need to construct a new circuit. And when you construct a new circuit, well, then you can step into that circuit and that allows you to change, right? And this is sort of what we're doing when we started talking about manifestation and the claim methodology. Like as soon as you key into that node that you're trying to create or that node you're trying to use for manifestation, that's the creation of a new mental circuit. And ideally what we want to do is we want to be picking those things that are on our resonance ladder, which I talked about previously as well. It's like those things that really click with you, those things that get you excited to move forward. And so if we pick a good target, well, then from there, what we have to do is we have to construct a new circuit. This means like we have to flesh out the mindset around the thing that we're trying to accomplish. So if we're going to go back to one of those previous examples here, so maybe the video game addict, all right? Say that person wants to stop just giving all of their best energy to video games. Instead, they want to, level up in their career and their relationships and their fitness and all that kind of stuff. Well, maybe what they want to, like, we could summarize that as them becoming a man of action. I've done a whole series on that kind of stuff. And what we have to do then is we got to separate, all right, what's the value difference? How does the man of action map his good and bad? Okay. Well, the good and bad for the man of action is like, all right, if it moves him closer to his goals, then it's good. If it moves him away from his goals, well, then it's bad, right? And this is really, it's just being more authentic with it, right? And when you can build that perception, you can key into something on that circuit that you vibe with, that you resonate with, then you just use the claim methodology where you imagine that you already have the thing, you're grateful for it, and then you let it unfold, and you can take wonderful, consistent action in this way. So the heart of this game, taking all the stuff we've learned previously, it's kind of like we're just trying to switch circuits. And it happens very holistically, neurochemically, spiritually, psychologically. There's a shift that needs to occur. Now, the big challenge with this is that we will unconsciously keep falling back into the old patterns, right? Like maybe you know who you want to be. Maybe you've got it all clear in your head, but you keep failing to do that. You keep ending up back in the same old places over and over and over and over again. And this is something that I've dealt with ad nauseum, a while ago now, like in my own life, but then also with my clients and helping people quit porn. Like that's such a hard thing for guys to get over, is that they have this pattern that they've built since, early adolescence where they use porn and they jerk off and they do this thing, and it becomes this whole self-regulatory pattern for dealing with their emotions and their problems in life and everything like that. And then when they try and quit, it's so hard. They keep relapsing and falling back into the same thing. So it's like learning how to get out of that can be quite a tricky situation. So if we were going to get really atomic, really specific with this problem so that we can solve it, well, then we can kind of do that so in two sort of pieces, all right? The first piece is the critical moment where there's that option. You have a choice in front of you to go one way or another way, all right? So if you're a porn addict, it's that critical moment that you get a craving, you get triggered, okay? And I talk about this critical moment awareness a ton in my Metascript method guide, which if you haven't checked that out, then make sure you check that out. There's that piece. So it's like the fork in the road. Like if this circuit is like a train track, you got the fork in the road where you go left or right. That's one piece of this. But then it's the subsequent traveling on that circuit. And if we take both these pieces and we put it together, we get this idea of what I would call psychomagnetic sets. Okay. And a set is basically just a period of automatic activity that happens during your day. And so we have all different kinds of sets that we go through throughout our day. And a lot of times we just cruise into them unconsciously. So like as soon as you wake up, you're in a set, okay? And you're in the circuit that you're running in there. That determines whether you win the set or you lose the set. We'll define a win as whether you show up as a person that you truly want to be, and a loss as you showed up kind of inauthentically. So you wake up in the morning, you're lying in your bed. All of a sudden, that's a set because there's going to be an automatic flow of activity that you're going to want to go into. And if you're not a good morning person, well, then that moral circuit you're going to go into, well, then you're going to map goodness to staying in bed and being comfortable. And you're going to map badness to, getting out of bed and being uncomfortable, right? And if you just let that be the case, well, then you're going to stay in bed, you're going to be late, you're going to fall behind and stuff. And that's not who you want to be. So that would be a loss. You would have lost that set if you got up late. Okay. But if you manage to shift, to cycle up, to go into that next circuit where you think, oh no, I have good stuff to happen today. I'm going to, use the claim methodology to get myself out of bed, which I did an example for previously, where it's like you imagine yourself already rolling, imagine yourself with your coffee and like smile on your face. You step into a state of gratitude. And then before you know it, you're going to be out of bed and rolling. There are dozens of sets that you go throughout the day. Maybe after that, it's like, all right, at work, and you've got various chunks of time where you really need to buckle down. And during that set, if you let the old pattern of surfing the internet every 5 minutes and doing 5 minutes of work, or the old circuit of doing that, like, you're going to lose. You're not going to show up as the guy that you want to be. And so it's like, all right, what's the circuit that you want to be in, right? It would be the productive guy who has, maybe he's got his Pomodoro timer out and he's, focused on the project at hand, etc. And so, you can map all of that. And each time that you sit down to try and get into a flow state, that's an opportunity for you to either cycle up and evolve or cycle down and devolve. So where are your problem sets, right? Where do you struggle? If you take a little bit of time to reflect on it, you can probably find the spots where you're weak, right? And so what can we do to fix this? How can we optimize your ability to cycle up rather than cycle down? I think it comes down to what I would call game state awareness. So this whole idea I've come up here with Omnigame and everything like that, it's like, all right, if you can just remember that you're playing the game and that you can just notice, I'm shifting into this old circuit, but I want to be in this other circuit so that I can be the person I want to be, not the person I don't, right? If you can just remember this and then play the game, then you're going to be able to win. And that's game state awareness, okay? And so how do we generate this? Well, you could just watch this video and, it might impact you for a little while, but you'll probably just forget about it and, be more or less the same. So what if you didn't want to do that? What if you wanted to make sure that something else happened? Well, the heart of it is finding more ways to feed the new circuit. So let's get specific about this. All right. What can we do? Well, there's a lot of different things that we can do, but really it's just bringing your attention and putting your mind in that new moral framework, that new, the person you want to be, his perception of good versus bad, okay? And let's just start going through some of the options, all right? First one is dashboarding. Talked about this in my Man of Action series. This is the idea where you keep like a little scoreboard daily of did you hit your core habits or not, okay? Another one would be the reset ritual, which is kind of like a combination of the dashboarding combined with the Metascript method, where daily you're checking in like, all right, how did I do with my core goals? And then if you missed something, you go through with the Metascript method journaling techniques, and then you imagine you basically solve any problems. And then you look forward and you imagine, where are some areas where I might have problems, and let's pre-program my brain for success. All of that work right there is feeding energy into the new circuit. You have to think like the person that you want to be in order to pull all of that stuff out. And if you're feeding that energy in there, well, that circuit's going to grow stronger. Rather than just leaving it to yourself in those critical moments to be right, well, that's kind of a haphazard approach. And this is something that I've found to be extremely true when it comes to quitting porn, for example. If the only practice that you have quitting porn is when a trigger strikes, well, then it's going to take you a really long time probably to fully recover. And so if you feed that circuit of the porn-free mind more regularly, and you do this through journaling, you do this through visualization, you do this through interacting on a forum, you do this through coming to like the live calls that I do, like whatever. It's like the more ways that you can find to feed energy into that person that you want to be, the easier this adaptation is going to be. And so that's a lot of the reason why I created the Vanguard, so that guys could have a place to just plug their mind into where they want to be more easily. Because otherwise it's just kind of like you're kind of stuck with journaling, and maybe if you've got some good people to talk to. But that is really spotty, and it doesn't work for a lot of people. It's much easier to be there with other people trying to pull you in, trying to pull you up, right? So this is really the heart of it. And once you see this, it gives you kind of like unlimited ability to start winning, because you don't need to wait for that critical moment anymore to start feeding that new circuit, to start feeding that person that you want to be. It's just, you just choose to. You just say, all right, who's the person I want to be? What's something I can do right now to feed that person? And that's it. And it's awesome. And it becomes this game where it's like this open world adventure where you can start leveling up at any point. And, whenever you screw up or you mess up or whatever, you can even turn that into a growth opportunity. And that's, what I teach you how to do with my anabolic optimism guide, which, is great, link below. And then the Metascript method guide, also free. And make sure we put a link in that one as well. So, but this is pretty much what I have for you in this episode, guys. Hopefully you found this useful. Play big. I'll see you in the next one.